cover what a family of 6 is going through right now.
Right.
And when we are taxed, the average person is taxed. That revenue that comes from that new tax goes to a developer, a friend. It doesn't go back into the community.
Right.
So you have a lack of investment. And when you have a consistent lack of investment in African American communities, you see this decay, and you don't see this decay for just a year or two. You see it for generations. And if you look around the country, in ex-Black community, you see that policymakers, whether they are local, national, whatever, what have you, they are not reinvesting in these communities that need the most investment.
And when people think about, the first thing you teach in economics is that people are rational. And so back, I remember when I was a kid, I was in high school, college, I kept hearing about the police department in LA. And back then, I was from Virginia, I grew up in Virginia. LA, Los Angeles seemed like so far away. I would never visit there. It seemed like another country. I remember that, like, wow, Los Angeles. And they were talking about how the police misconduct in Los Angeles, so on and so forth. And then the Rodney King situation happened, and people were rioting. And I think it was a uprising, not just for Rodney King, but because of how they felt the police was treating them in general. And the media was saying, well, why are these people uprising? And why are they destroying their own community? It doesn't make sense. Next thing you know, President Bush, H.W. Bush, at the time said, oh, we got a problem. He woke, and the whole world is watching, we have a problem. And he said, we need to do something about this. But they've been saying it for a while, and nobody was listening. We're just saying people were upset, nobody was listening. And when this riot happened, President H.W. Bush said, we have a problem. We need to do something about it. We need to invest in the city, in the city.
You know what you just
I'm saying to myself, see, people are rational. When they brought it to the president's doorstep and they brought it to the world's doorstep, all of a sudden people woke up. I think that's what you're describing.
What you're saying right now is what happened in Ferguson.
Right.
Okay? So people are saying, why am I getting stopped all the time?
Right.
Why am I getting all these fines? Because we were talking about this. I have leaves outside,
Right.
and then you get a $50 ticket, and you're supposed to show up to court. If you don't show up to court, then it's going to be a $100 fine. And so you have these people in communities of poverty-stricken communities who are constantly being targeted
Right.
for the very little money that they have, and then the economic policies that exist don't support them getting out of the black hole that they're in.
Right. And so I think the world saw Ferguson. I think I know African Americans around the country. I know African Americans around the country looked at Ferguson. Wow, I mean, something wrong, and maybe we need to follow that example as far as getting attention of the powers that be. So I'll take that as a segue to taking the knee. And again, populism is. I don't think a lot of young people understand what you can't. How can I put it? You can't say we're gonna protest against the police and then we're gonna praise this politician over here or whatever, because it's all kind of connected. So taking a knee, to me, what Kaepernick is doing is kind of bringing attention to this police state that we're in. And in my opinion, people, you hear a lot of African Americans on TV say, it's always been that way. I don't think that. In my own personal life, when I was my son's age, I used to live in Washington, D.C., and my friends and I, we painted the town red. We did everything under the sun. We never did anything illegal, and that went on tape. But this is the line, we came close to the line. We never thought about seeing police. Mm-hmm. We never saw a police officer. If we saw a police officer, we felt safe. Wow, it's a safe community. Today, you see a lot of police, and I would be concerned about the police if I saw a police officer there, because I think they're trying to stop me to get a fee or something.
Exactly.
And whether it's to meet a quota or to raise more money for the city or try to become chief of police in a day, I think they're trying to do something. And so even from my own experience, that it's a dichotomy. We've turned into a police state, whether it started with the Clintons, President Clinton's policy of the 3 strikes and you're out, and another politician saying, well, why don't we let the police search your car? Why don't we let the police search your house? So I would just start there. Taking a knee to me is he's trying to bring attention to police misconduct and this police state that we live in now. So I'll just have you take that away as far as what do you when you see the NFL players kneeling, what do you see?
Taking a knee to me is, I would start off by saying there is a place, a space, and a role for everyone. Everyone has a distinct position to serve to move the ball so that we have equity across the board. I can't do the same thing as a professor may be able to do when it comes to equity in America,
Right.
so that every person of color has the equity that they deserve. He has a space, he has a place, and he has a role. I have a space, I have a place, space, place, and a role. So when I look at taking the knee, it's in the role that you're in the space that you're in. You make the sacrifice to move the ball so that we have more equity. Because if there are people who are not making sacrifices, and trust me, there are people who make sacrifices, and Kaepernick, he has made sacrifices, and people are talking about that. But there are a lot of other people who don't have that name, who are making sacrifices every single day to keep the ball rolling. What I was telling your son earlier is that, look, you can't have a Malcolm without having a Martin, okay? You can't have a W.E.B. Du Bois without having a Booker T. Washington. So it's very necessary to have people who understand their role, their space, and their place, and use it. And if you do not use it, shame on you.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the whole criminal justice system is still like screwed up. You know, I mean, here's an example. It was a while ago, but I once, long story short, I was involved in some of the Suffolk County courts and had to hang out there because my father was working there because I was pretty young, I was a teenager. And they had two lounges. They had lounges for everybody. And they had an unmarked door, which is really a lounge for lawyers. I don't know whether it was only lawyers could go there. I don't think so, but just people didn't know about it. It was unmarked. So, but it was nicer. It had a leather thing, had a better soda machine, had a television, so I would hang out there. And these sort of seedy-looking lawyers would hang out there. And every once in a while, a court officer, a guy in a police uniform, but he was a court officer, and he would walk in and he'd say something like, black male, age 18, possession of narcotics, who wants it? And one of the lawyers would raise his hand, and if you look very closely, so the lawyer gave that officer a $20 bill. And then later you'd see them trading these things. And then I asked questions, they told me, and this county of Suffolk County did not pay a dollar. They were pro bono defense attorneys. And the county of Suffolk did not give them a dime, gave them nothing for expenses. And every once in a while one would say, what do you got? And he'd say, I got this. And these would be poor people, usually drugs. And the guy would say, give me that folder. And he got $50. And I'd say, why are these seedy lawyers paying to do pro bono legal work? And then I found out the reason they were paying to get these is that they would accumulate these folders. And then there'd be a paying, like a mafia guy would run over somebody well drunk and he was arrested, or this mafia guy was arrested, but who could pay a bill. And so these seedy lawyers would go to the district attorney, the assistant district attorney, and say, I got a folder here with 15 of these pro bono cases. You let this mafia guy who ran over somebody when he was drunk, let him off. I'll give you 15 guilty pleas. So look at what your record is going to be.
Let me tell you what you're explaining right now. Let me tell you what you're explaining. Do you watch Medea? Do you watch Medea?
I saw some.
Medea movies. Do you know that Medea movie? There's a Medea movie specifically. Everything that you're, because I love Medea.
I probably saw it.
I just love me some Medea. But what you were explaining is a particular Medea movie where they were do y'all know what I'm talking about? Which movie? And it's two people who are in love and they're both attorneys. What's that? I forgot it. But anyway, you are explaining a movie. And it was everything that you just said is in a movie.
Yeah. Well, I guess
And it's real. So I know that you're telling the truth.
But I think I think we become a police state, and not what used to be like people talk about L.A. I think it's becoming like a lot of places where constant contact between police and civilians over like quality of life things. Like the guy in South Carolina got shot, Walter Scott. He had a third taillight out. I mean, who gets stopped for a third taillight? And a third taillight isn't even. I think it's a vanity light for like a Mercedes Benz or whatever. But so I just think it's we're in a police state, and I think that's what he's kneeling for. The next point I want to make is, why do you think Trump? I mean, can you sort of elaborate on Trump's stance towards the players. In my opinion, when he made the point, Trump went down to Alabama to campaign for Luther Strange, who was running against Roy Moore. What he went down there for he didn't accomplish because Luther Strange lost to Roy Moore. But he did stir up his base by talking about those sons of his players should be fired if they don't stand for the flag. Well, I think at that point he hadn't accomplished anything. He hadn't cut taxes. He hadn't done anything. I think he was trying to energize his base in between accomplishing something. And John McLaughlin said if Trump doesn't grow taxes, I think his base will turn on him. And he hadn't accomplished anything at that point. I think he was trying to energize his base by sort of verbally attacking the players. And secondly, I think in any country, if you don't stand for the flag, I think whether it's China or the United States or Mexico or Russia, I think you're going to get some blowback from the government. And I think the players should be prepared for a blowback from Trump. But I think that was his response to the players. I think was his attempt to energize his base over patriotism.
It was, but it also exposes the fact that he has no cultural understanding background. He doesn't understand the fight that people of color have endured for generations, if not hundreds of years. And so that's part of what he lacks is cultural understanding. Because some of the best hustlers are African American.
Yeah, he exploits the differences. That's his whole thing. Yeah. And he didn't make that up. Somebody about 10 years ago wrote a book, and I've heard John Maynard Keynes' famous statement that madmen in authority are distilling their frenzy from some book that was written years ago. And somebody wrote a book and said the Republicans could win instead of being like surreptitious, dog whistle anti-black and talking about, paroles, be blatantly anti-black, and there's still enough you can win. And that's what Trump and Bannon, said that, that's, you saw Bannon in Europe. He said, when they call you racist, wear it proudly, say I'm a racist.
And that is the definition of institutional racism. And when you have an economy that is structured as it is with the haves versus have-nots, and then you add a layer of racism, that is intentional. Mm-hmm. That's intentional of keeping people down. It's current day slavery. It's institutional slavery. I was thinking about that just the other day. Slavery doesn't look like it did, 200 years ago. What it looks like is this black male who's walking down the street, who may have his pants down a little bit low. You're walking the street, we're going to stop you. And oh, by the way, you look like maybe another black male that we've been looking for. And then you start running, and then you get shot. How many times do we see that? But here's the next thing that happens. When a community sees this happen again and again and again, it causes triggers. So not only are we going to have the 4th anniversary of the shooting of Mike Brown, but we're about to have another anniversary that's called Charlottesville. Right. And what people saw in Charlottesville is triggering. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely triggering to a people who have been kept down because of these policies that say that a black male is never ever going to be equal to a white male.
Okay, and that's funny because I was just about to...
It's not funny. It's not funny.
I was about to segue to Charlottesville.
Yes, okay.
I was about to segue to Charlottesville. You read my mind. But in my opinion, this is my opinion. I'm 50 years old. Okay? I'm from Virginia. I grew up an hour from Charlottesville. Went to business school in Charlottesville. And in my opinion, this economy, again, go back to this economy, it's not as strong as people say it is. And I think the media, I think the government, in my opinion, seems to be trying to hide that, mask that this $30 trillion from the Obama administration that's supposed to be so-called growing the economy, it grew something. It wasn't the economy. I think it's grown Wall Street and the investor class.
Yes.
And the stock market is controlled by 10%, maybe 10% of the country controls like 90% of the stock market. What good does it do to have Apple with a $1 trillion market capitalization? What good does it do to have the Dow at 26,000? No economist would tell you to do that. I study economics, so I think the government's trying to cover it up. I think when people find out that after all this money, we're still gonna have another recession. I think people are gonna tear this country all to hell.
And that's why I say that
so,
we're back. We are pre-Great Depression right now.
Right. So you're voicing that. My point, I think, and I've been for 50 years. Nobody has ever asked me about a statue. Nobody has ever asked me about Robert E. Lee. What you think about Robert E. Lee? What you think about when you think about Beauregard or Jefferson Davis or Stonewall Jackson? What it sounds like this is what it sounds like to me. That when I was a kid, I was never a problem with my parents. The only problem I ever had was with a ball. I couldn't put it down. I broke vases, storm doors, windows, everything. And my mother would come home at she usually heard about what I'd done. She'd be home at 5:30, and I could tell by how fast she was walking when she left the car if she heard about